And we passed to the international competition. 20,000 species of bees, or 20,000 especies de abejas. We started this selection exactly where the festival ended last year, with a film done by a young filmmaker from Spain. Estibaliz Urresola project was part of our co-production project, so we are happy to show it at the festival. But we are even more happy because it's a very moving film. The story revolves around an 8-year-old and the summer spent with the mother and the siblings. It is a film very moving because it tells how difficult it can be sometimes to find the name with whom we would like to be called. I go to the next one, which comes from China, by Taji Guang, The Shadowless Tower. Zhang was in 2007 in competition. His film afterwards was selected in many other festivals and twice more at the Berlinale. So we are very happy to welcome him back with probably one of his most complex, moving, funny, but also sad films. In this one, through songs, poems, food, iconic place in the whole city of Beijing, he composed a tribute to that incredible town. Intertwining a father and son story with a romantic love story, Zhang builds an original melodrama with a bittersweet taste. Bis ans Ende der Nacht, till the end of the night. This film comes from a filmmaker whose work is very dear to us. We were expecting his new film for some time, and we are happy to see that he has not lost anything of his style, of his vision, of his skills. It is a detective story, a noir we could say. Hochhausler pay a reference to this genre, but also try to inject something personal, as always he does, starting with the role of the detective and the femme fatale, which are very different from the film of premiere of the classical noir of Hollywood, but also, to quote another reference, from the film of Fassbinder. Here we go with a totally different genre, BlackBerry. This is not a classical biopic on the Canadian company that changed our world by adding the smartness to our phones. The film is based on a book. It has an important cast, but it has also what defines Matt Johnson's style, which is his sense of humor, his playfulness, his vitality. And we were very happy to see that even with a more robust production and established actor, he managed to keep his personal view on the world and also his taste for B-movies. Disco Boy, the one at the center of the picture, is Alexei from Belarus. He's a stubborn young guy who manages to arrive to Paris and finds, in the French Foreign Legion of course, the way to get an European citizenship. Disco Boy is not the usual heartbreaking story of a migrant. It's rather a journey to the end of the night. It's a first film with a distinctive style, an original soundtrack composed by the electronic musician Vitalik, and then, last but not least, is a film with Franz Rogowski, who once more proves that he can play every character and be totally believable. We stay in France with the next one. Le Grand Chariot is the second time for Garrel to be in competition, 3 years after his last movie. Garrel has filmed since the age of 17, and now it's, if I'm not wrong, a little bit more than 70. All his movies always revolve around two elements, love and family. Le Grand Chariot have both, because Philippe Garrel has asked Louis, his son, but also Esther and the little one Lena to play the main character. It's a family portrait, and it's one of the few films that Garrel has done in color, and the film is shot by the great DOP Renato Berta. Ingeborg Bachmann, Reise in die Wüste. We are thrilled to welcome back Margarethe von Trotta in Berlin International Competition for the first time since Hell Havana, 1983. Her film is one of the most awaited, Ingeborg Bachmann being a very well-known and beloved figure in European culture, and Vicky Krieps, one of the most versatile, talented actors in the film scene. The film is not really a biopic, it's more a inner monologue, where the edit play a very creative and relevant role. Irgendwann werden wir uns alles erzählen. 5 years later, Emilia Atef is back in competition. From the French shore of Quiberon, we are taken to the less glamorous German East countryside back in 1990. We follow Maria, performed by the young actor Marlene Burov, whose performance is very impressive, and her passionate love for the older farmer Henner, played by Felix Kramer. The film tells the story of a teenage in love, and nothing can be more disruptive and stronger of a teenager in love. Naked bodies, the lack of willpower and the desire, and it's something that we have missed in the last year. So we are happy to have this film in our selection. Limbo, 20 years after Beneath the Clouds and after being appreciated in other festivals, Indigenous Australian filmmaker Ivan Sen is back for the first time in competition. Limbo follows a quite peculiar detective played by Simon Baker. Location have always played a relevant role in Ivan Sen's work. Here the story is set in a special area in the south of Australia. The film is the only black and white film we have in our selection. As you can see, the grey dominates, and this has also a political and metaphorical value. Mal Vivere. This is the counterpiece of the film presented in Encounters, or rather the reverse shot. If Vivere Mal is about the guest, the hotel, here we stay with the owners, 3 generations of women. The hotel is architecture, but also the way it has been filmed by Joao Canijo and his team is the real main character of the film. Well, as you can tell, we were really intrigued by this double project, which is Mal Vivere is a melodrama performed by great actor in the great Portuguese tradition. The next one is also a film very dear to us, Manodrome. Jesse Eisenberg is the lead in this film, and he plays the role of a young man in upstate New York who is about to become father and feels a sense of loss. The film will go into what is a masculinity nowadays in Western society. Along with him, there is Odessa Young playing her partner, but there is also a great Adrian Brody playing a cult leader. Music. This is the new film of Angela Schanelec. She's back 3 years after winning the Silver Bear for Best Director. The story starts in Greece, so in the south of Europe, probably at the end of the 80s, but time doesn't matter with this story. It is the story of a baby abandoned, and then the baby becomes a young man who commits an accident by crime. This film is loosely based on the myth of Oedipus. Angela Schanelec is based on a very specific and strong use of ellipses. And music is probably the film where she pushes that use to the limit, taking the story through time and space. Past Lives has received rave reviews in Sundance. The film premiered 3 days ago. It's a first feature length by Celine Zhang, who based the film on her personal story. The story is happened in 3 different places. First Seoul, when the protagonists are kids, then Toronto, and then New York. You know, cinema can show the flow of time, but also can erase it with a sharp cut. And playwright Celine Zhang do that and makes the contrast between the power of love and the equal strong power of memories, the perfect ground for her moving melodrama. Roter Himmel follows Undine after the fire, we could say, as the 2 films are part of a trilogy. Here the centerpiece is played by a young man who tries to write a book in a house by the sea. But it is known that life always keeps writers at distance. So the special melodrama film that Petzold has built has to do with exactly being an artist, but also feel the urge to be part of life. It is a film suspended between symbolism and realism, between fun moments and a deeply tragic end. Sur l'Adamant. Nicolas Philibert has a very long career behind him. His films, be they with young kids in a small school in the countryside or with an orangutan in Paris, have enchanted and amused the world. But he has never been to a competition, so I amend that by inviting l'Adaman in competition. Sur l'Adamant, l'Adaman is one of the many boats on the bank of La Seine. These boats don't float anymore, but this one in particular has become a safe haven for suffering people. As you have probably guessed, this film deals with mental illness, and after pandemic, mental illness has become, if possible, an even more timely matter. But it's not about suffering. In this film, it's very hard to tell the difference between the people who need care and the one who are giving cares. Philibert makes film to create bridges, and Sur l'Adaman is probably the most relevant bridge crossing La Seine in Paris, and hopefully not only in Paris. The Survival of Kindness. Rolf de Heer, Alexandra's project, was selected in 2003 at the festival. Charlie's Country, his last feature length to date, is almost 10 years old, so we are very happy and thrilled to have him back. The Survival of Kindness has something in common with Charlie's Country, in the sense that both films try to answer this question: what is left of our humanity? The Survival of Kindness is a very daring project because it has a very unique tone and narrative. It tries to match the science fiction with an extremely precise way of filming and highlighting real locations. We are very happy to have this moral fable about the value of resilience with us today. Suzume. I always want to bring an animation film in competition because it brings something different and because it's part of cinema. And I'm happy to have found Suzume, which is the latest work by Makoto Shinkai. Makoto Shinkai is the poet of youth, and with this film he expands his universe. The film is a road movie through the Japanese archipelago, but also through its history and traumas. And we close the selection with Trotta, but the young protagonist has a kind of sadness in her eyes. She's not the one celebrated, but she's definitely at the center of this intimate, moving film that deals with family, loss and tenderness. Done by another young filmmaker, Lila Aviles from Mexico, with a young protagonist. And I like thinking that this is the best hug for our selection and for our all. And this is all thanks for your patience.